Is Cole Sillinger a part of the Blue Jackets' core going forward, or is he potential trade bait for some help on the wing? We're going to discuss that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Now, I said that I was going to do another free agent episode. And then I got a comment on YouTube from, hey, should I pull this up beforehand? Sure, should have. A comment from Shoe03, which says, maybe a hot take, but I'd rather trade Sillinger and or Jenner before Chinikov. I just feel like there's so much upside. And so I hadn't really, I'd been kind of considering Sillinger as a potential trade piece, depending on what was coming back the other way, right? But is that legit? Is that, is Sillinger a piece that you want to keep and, to keep improving and growing with the team? Or do you, I don't think his value is sky high right now, right? It's not like just won the Conn Smythe high, but he's a good young natural center that has, I believe, almost 300 NHL games under his belt already, which feels insane because he's 22 years old. He's under a pretty good contract, or he is until next summer when his contract will be up and he'll need a new one. But the Blue Jackets, in theory, have kind of a logjam at center, or they will anyway. And a lot of this is again, we're doing thought experiments here on Locked On Blue Jackets. We're doing hypotheticals, but if you go out and get, for example, I did an episode about this a couple of weeks ago. If you go out and get a Marco Rossi, for example, is Cole Sillinger a piece that goes back in that trade, right? If you can upgrade at wing, do you sacrifice some of that center depth that you have worked honestly pretty hard to keep hold of, and hope that Luca Del Barbalus can step in, for example, or Caden Lindstrom is not going to be an option for a couple of years, but is Cole Sillinger in the plans for the future of this team, or is he a guy that you move on from in an attempt to get, again, he's a middle six center, probably a 3C. I could see him as I think he probably tops out as a 2C at his absolute ceiling. But the Blue Jackets right now, obviously they've got Fantilli as their 1C or franchise 1C. He's doing a 1A, 1B thing with Sean Monahan at the minute, who's around for the next 4 seasons. And then you've got Cole Sillinger just slotting in on that third center spot, which I think is perfect. I think he has grown massively in the past couple of seasons. Obviously, came into the NHL as an 18-year-old, was the youngest player in the league that season. Had a pretty good rookie season on an extremely miserable Blue Jackets team, and struggled in his second season, I think it's fair to say. I believe spent a little bit of time in the AHL. Only played 64 games in his second season. Only had 11 points. Last season, bounced back. Or the season before last, I should say, bounced back 32 points in 77 games. Last season, 33 points in 66 games. So he is... It's weird because the numbers aren't going up as much as you would like, but he's getting roughly the same amount of production in fewer games. Now, he's playing more in ice time in those games. His ice time has gone up from about 13 and a half minutes to almost 17 minutes on average. But he's growing, right? And I think this was, the last 2 seasons we've seen really, really good things from Cole Sillinger, right? So I guess, it goes back to, is he a piece that you keep, or is he a piece that is valuable and that can be moved for help at the wing, for help on defense, for help in goal, whatever, right? Which I am extremely curious to see how the next kind of couple of weeks play out, right? Because obviously the Blue Jackets want to improve at wing, they want to improve on defense, they want to they have to do something about the goalie situation. Do they do something before, like, the picks are in play? They have 2 first-round draft picks, they're in play before, the draft. If they don't draft, if they get traded, is it a case of, are they gonna make their moves before free agency? Or is it a case of they're gonna make those picks with the selections that they have, take those prospects, and move current prospects slash young players for help after free agency? See what you get in free agency. If you can pick up a goalie, great. Jake Allen, I think, is the best option right now. See what happens with the defense. See what happens with the forwards. And after that, if you're like, right, okay, well, we didn't really get the impact winger that we wanted in free agency, let's say, Marner goes somewhere else, Besser goes somewhere else, Ehlers goes somewhere else, Bennett's probably going to stay in Florida. Like, those are the big guys, right? I'm probably forgetting someone, but, is that when you turn your attention to, okay, Jason Robertson's available? Can we go and get Jason Robertson? And is Cole Sillinger a piece that could be going back the other way? And I think could and should are 2 different things as well. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. I want to talk about Cole Sillinger kind of as a player first. I didn't mean to spend 6 minutes talking about, like, hypotheticals, but I want to talk about Cole Sillinger as a player and then kind of try and look at what his future on this team could look like. And, if he is included in trades, what could those trades look like? So, like I said, Cole Sillinger has improved basically every season since coming to the NHL, which was about 5 minutes after they drafted him. And I still don't think he should have made the team that season. Like, he had a pretty good rookie season, again, on a miserable Blue Jackets team. But I wonder if they'd sent him, and I don't recall exactly what the rules are in terms of, like, where he would have gone, but if he'd gone to, so he was drafted out of the USHL because it was the COVID draft and things were weird. If he'd gone back to Medicine Hat, which was where he played his D-1 year or his D-2 year, what that would have done for his development, right? So he played in Medicine Hat the year before his draft year. His draft year, he played for the, I believe it was the Muskegon something or others in the USHL Lumberjacks. I should know this. I don't have his Elite Prospects page up. That's on me. But if he doesn't play that first year in the NHL, goes back to juniors, comes back, would we see a different player now potentially? I think we saw, obviously the sophomore slump happens to a lot of guys, but I think the past couple of years we're seeing, he's improved away from the puck a lot. He's still not putting up the points that I would like him to put up. Like, one of the things that he was drafted for was his shot, his goal scoring ability, right? And we haven't really seen that. He's got 43 goals in 286 career games. His career high is 16, which he set in his rookie season. I would like to think that there is a 20 to 25 goal scorer in there somewhere, but he has instead turned into a fairly reliable middle six two-way center, right? He does some penalty killing. He can put up some offense. Like, he's put up 60, 70 points so far in his career over 4 seasons, which, like, is not he's put up 107. I can do math. So he's about over a third of a point a game, which, I'd really like him to be closer to a half or over a point a game. But what we saw last year and what we saw specifically the year before last was when everyone was injured. Fantilli went down, and the Blue Jackets didn't really have any centers. Boone Jenner was out with a personal issue. Like, everyone was injured, right? Cole Sillinger just stepped up, and he took the matchup that was like, okay, he matched off against McDavid, he matched off against McKinnon, he matched off against Crosby in these games, right? And he did a pretty good job. He doesn't get that hard matchup all of the time, But what I have noticed is interesting is that he does get that matchup sometimes this season, more so when Monahan was out. Obviously, Monahan gets the hard matchups. But when he was out and Sillinger was in, I thought it was a much more even split between Fantilli and Sillinger getting those hard matchups than I expected it to be, right? And he again mostly held his own. And I think that's probably a good sign for later on, right? Because again, we talk about how, oh, well, I want his goal scoring to pop or I want his points to be higher. He's 22 years old, like just turned 22 last month, almost exactly a month ago, right? Like he's not going to turn 23 until the next season is over. He's still very, very young. He's got time to develop. And I think it's really interesting that we're seeing the off puck stuff develop before the points. Because sometimes I feel like it's the other way around, right? Is that you see the points pop, they figure out the offense, and then they go back and they work on everything else. But it feels like Sillinger's kind of doing it backwards, is that he's working on his off puck play, he's working on his, abilities at center. And that's really interesting because I do think that maybe not next season, but maybe the season after that, I think we might see a pop from Cole Sillinger, which will be fun. The question is, will it be with Columbus? Will it be with another team? Should it be with Columbus or should it be with someone else? Let's talk about all of that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about wonderful pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. They're one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. I love the no shells variety. I can literally just open the packet and pour it into my mouth like a gremlin. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about Cole Sillinger today and if he has a place in the future of this team. And I know that sounds like a stupid question at first. We've talked a little bit about kind of the thoughts I had surrounding this. We've talked about him as a player, but here's the thing. Okay. If we look at the Blue Jackets as they are constructed now, and then look at the Blue Jacket, and look ahead to what this Blue Jacket team is going to look like in 3 to 5 seasons, you're looking at a young core, right? Like Marchenko's in there, Johnson, Fantilli, Matejchuk, Voronkov, all of these pieces. Jet Greaves, probably. Zach Werenski, I don't think I count as a young core member, but he should be part of that core. Is Monahan will be there for, the next 4 seasons. So he'll probably, again, it'll be the tail end of his time in Columbus unless he wants to extend, but that's a long ways away. Does Cole Sillinger fit in with that group of people, right? You got Chidakov, you could also have the same conversation about, but Cole Sillinger is more likely to be here than Chidakov for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is that he's a natural center, and I genuinely don't think, and again, this might be like the trauma of being a Blue Jackets fan, there's no such thing as too many centers, right? And I think if they move him, it's going to be for another center, which I don't think is necessarily something that they're interested in doing yet right now, right? Again, Marco Rossi is kind of the big one there. I don't think that they want to sacrifice the center depth that they have at the minute because they're an injury away from 1C Boone Jenner or 2 injuries away from 1C Boone Jenner again, right? We don't want to go back to that. But, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, what you've got in Delbar Blues. Lindstrom is a lot closer to the NHL. Again, I still think he's 2 years away from being an NHL option, minimum. Maybe Cole Sillinger is kind of extraneous piece at that point. But right now, he's one of the top 3 centers on the team. And I think if you move him, it better be for a damn good return, right? None of this, oh, well, we're gonna trade Cole Sillinger away for, God, I don't even know. But I said that and then was like, I've forgotten every NHL player. But like, if you want to package him as, if you want to send him to, for example, let's say that you can try and get Paterka and Power or Byram or whoever you want from Buffalo. Do you package Cole Sillinger up in there and assume that you can figure out going forward? Like, again, Dmitry Voronkov ostensibly is a C. I think he's much better on the wing, but he can play center if you need him to. Boone can play center if you need him to. Again, much better on the wing. Luca Del Babalou's kind of a revelation this season. Can he figure it out long term? Again, Lindstrom will eventually be there. Arguably, you can pick up a veteran bottom six center, right? If the trade is worth it, and again, I don't think that this is likely. I could see them doing it, but I do think that of Sillinger or Chinikov, who are the two kind of, I would argue, more touchable young players, like Marchenko's not going anywhere, Fantilli's not going anywhere. I'm pretty sure Kent Johnson's not going anywhere. So you're left with Sillinger and Chinikov kind of as your younger pieces that are currently under contract, right? Obviously, Voronkov is in there. You've got prospect. Matejchuk, I don't think is going anywhere. But like of your pieces that have value that are movable, it's really only Sillinger and Chinikov, right? Like again, I could see Voronkov being moved, but I don't think it's very likely, especially based on the reporting that came out with Portsline last week, where Don Waddell was basically like, yeah, he's going to be here next year. We just have to figure out, how much and how long, right? So that's going to come. The other reason that Cole Sillinger, I think, is more valuable than Igor Chinikov is he plays a lot more. Like, again, I like Igor Chinikov as a player a lot. I think there is a lot of upside there. I think there is a lot of skill there. He has not played in a ton of hockey games since, like, making the NHL, right? Like, his rookie season, he played 62 games. His rookie season, by the way, was the same year as Cole Sillinger, which feels wild. But his second season, he only played 30 games, injured. Third season, 53 games, injured, and also healthy scratched. This season, 30 games, injured, healthy scratched. Like, he's played not very many games in 4 seasons. Like, he's never played a full season. His career high is 62 games. His points high is that can't be right. He must have played more seasons than that. I'm lying to myself, I think. The point is, over the last 4 seasons, his high is 62 games. He played 30 games this season, 50-something the season before, 30 the season before, 60-something the season before that. Like, that's not enough. And that's why I think, and again, this goes both ways, right? Like, this will impact his value as well as it will impact his value to the team. In the same way that Sillinger is more valuable to the team because he's healthy and is a center, that also makes him more valuable to every other team, right? So it really, it goes both ways. You can't say, well, we don't value him for this reason, but another team will value him for that reason, right? So Cole Sillinger is a more valuable trade piece than Chinikov, but I also think that's why they keep him around. Chinikov, again, Sillinger is under a pretty good deal. I believe it was a 2-year deal that he signed last offseason. That was one of the first ones that got sorted with Don Waddell. 2 years, 2.25 million is an RFA next summer. That's a pretty good deal for a young center. I feel pretty good about that, and I think that it was a real kind of show me deal, and Sillinger has showed him, right? Whether what he showed them is that he's a piece of the future or if he's a trade piece, I'm not sure yet. But if I had to put money on it, I would lean more into I don't think they're going to trade him than I do think they'll trade him. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think he is a big piece of the core of the young core going forward. I'm I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about Cole Sillinger, his future with the team, his future with other teams. Like, should he be a trade? Like, should he be on the trade market? And my immediate answer is no, he shouldn't be on the trade market. And I haven't heard his name being put out there. That doesn't mean that it's not out there because the organization is way more leak proof than it was, this time 2 years ago when the world and their wife knew what was going on in the Blue Jackets organization. We also haven't heard of any discontent from the player. Like, obviously last season there was a lot of Voronkov wanted to go home because he was homesick. Chinikov wanted to trade. People kept saying that Kent Johnson was available for trade. And then being like, well, we'll give you our garbage for Kent Johnson and you'll be happy about it. But that's beside the point. I haven't seen anyone saying, oh, Cole Sillinger has a potential. Like, if teams are looking for a young, good center to pick up, Cole Sillinger is one of them. Whether that means that they're just not paying attention to him, whether that means that, his name is really, really not out there in trade discussions, who can say? But Cole Sillinger, and this is potentially a hot take that I think I've talked about on this show before. I don't know that Cole Sillinger is part of this, like an important piece of the core going forward of this young core that the Blue Jackets have started to build. I do think he might be the future captain of this team, though, which sounds insane. I know. Boone Jenner's not going to be around forever. I think a lot of people think it's either going to go to Werenski or Fantilli, depending on when, Jenner leaves. He's got one more year on his contract, whether he calls it quits after that, whether he gets flipped at the deadline, whether he walks in free agency, whether he might extend again, there's no way to know. But general consensus seems to be that the captaincy is it's Werenski's. He's just waiting for Jenner to be done with it. Something about Cole Sillinger just says, he has that same energy of Boone Jenner, of Nick Foligno, right? Of not the biggest guy on the team, not the loudest guy on the team, not the most skilled guy on the team, not the flashiest guy on the team, but just kind of carries himself in a way that makes me think, oh, he might be he feels like he's definite letter material. And the thing that really cemented it for me was they did that candlelight vigil for Johnny Gaudreau, a few days after he passed away. And, Boone Jenner spoke, Erica Branson spoke, the A's on the team spoke, and so did Cole Sillinger, who was freshly 22, had only played with Johnny for 2 years, was 3 years into his NHL career. And he stood up there and he spoke to the rest of the vigil like the captains on the team did. And that for me was like, oh, that feels like future captain material. Like, I know that, again, Fantilli seems to be the more popular choice, potentially Werenski, but I think Cole Sillinger might be the future captain of this team. And I think he has kind of a young leadership is a weird phrase, but it feels like he's going to grow into something like that, right? I don't think it'll be next year. I don't think it'll be the year after. But at some point, I do think that Cole Sillinger might wear the C for this Blue Jackets team, which I think will be really interesting. And no doubt that every other fan base who has their best player as their captain will think it's hilarious. But your best player shouldn't necessarily be your captain. I think leadership and skill are two separate qualities. Not saying that I'm not saying that captains, for example, like Sidney Crosby, are bad at leadership, because I do think that Sidney Crosby is kind of the exception that proves the rule there. But I do think that people overlook lesser, quote unquote, captains just because they don't lead their team in points every season. So Cole Sillinger, I think, not necessarily part of, he's never going to be part of the star core. If the Blue Jackets build their own big four, for example, like in Toronto, which, obviously that hasn't gone super well for them, but, going forward, if we say, the Blue Jackets have Fantilli, they have Johnson, they have Marchenko, they have Matejchuk. In 3 years, that could be their big four TM. I don't think Cole Sillinger is ever going to be part of that, but I do think he's going to be a part of this team going forward. I understand to circle back to the original comment that kind of inspired this episode. Yes, Chinikov has a lot of upside, and I could see them potentially I could see them potentially moving a player like a Sillinger or a Jenner. But I think Sillinger, by way of, again, playing center and being dependable, I think that has kind of penciled him in. Like, he's going to be a part of this team. I still don't know if his ceiling is where it is, but he could end up being a really, really excellent third line center that has the ability to jump up in the lineup, right? Like, I like him as a center. I also wouldn't be mad if they decided to throw him on a line with Fantilli and Johnson and have, an extra center there if you start finding a logjam of centers, rather than just kind of throwing him away. Like, I think that he is, if not like an important piece of the core going forward, he's one of those guys that you need to have on your team. Not everyone remembers them. He's never going to lead the team in scoring, but like, if you can get 20 to 25 goals out of Cole Sillinger next 2 years, like, if he flirts with 30 for a year, like, that to me feels like, okay, that's probably his ceiling. But you need guys like that, Not everyone can be a Marchenko, a Johnson, a Fantilli, a Matejchuk, etc. Like, you need guys like Sillinger who are just they kind of bridge the line between depth glue guys and elite players. And I feel like Cole Sillinger is one of those guys that's just kind of in between. Not a star, not true fourth line depth, but, he's a middle six player. You need at least 6 middle six players on your team, right? And I think he's definitely one for the Blue Jackets going forward. If they trade him, I'm not going to be blown away if they do end up trading him. I'll be interested to see what the return is, but I can't see it happening. I think we would probably have heard that his name is being put out there, but I'll be interested to see, again, if he is traded, what the return is, but I don't think he will be. That's kind of what I've got for today. Tomorrow we'll be back. We'll talk about, I think we'll talk about Brock Besser, which is who I was going to talk about today, and then got distracted thinking about Cole Sillinger. We'll talk about Brock Besser tomorrow. Now that the Stanley Cup has been handed out, I think things are going to start moving pretty fast. So I should probably get these episodes in while I can before Don Waddell makes them obsolete. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you for listening. For making your first listen today, every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I've been Jeff Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO-Blue Jackets over on Blue Sky as well. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Once again, tomorrow we're going to talk all about Brock Besser and his potential fit on this team. But until then, make sure you stay locked on.